Hello everyone, welcome to Cashcroft TV. My name is Kalen Ashcroft. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ages of Empires, where we will be covering all of the major world empires. Today is Canadian Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to any Canadians. I guess I am thankful to have had both the time and energy to read that which I'm passionate about. I think a lot of people don't have enough time to begin with, or rather aren't able to find it, and those who do have time, many have much, but they don't have the energy also to put it towards their passions as well. I'm thankful to, of course, my family and friends and any of you who have taken the time and energy to either watch and or listen to any of these episodes, or to like or comment or anything like that. So today we will be covering Tang of the Shang Dynasty Empire and Tiglath-Pilesar the first of the Middle Assyrian Empire. So two very significant empires. As always, we will be doing this in the style of the rise and fall of each respective empire. Then we will hone in on one particular leader from each empire, and at the very end we will have a comparison of the two leaders in the style of Plutarch's Parallel Lives to perhaps learn more about character. So, without further ado, we will begin with Tang of the Shang Dynasty Empire, and then continue to Tiglath-Pilesar the first of the Middle Assyrian Empire. And my apologies, since it is Canadian Thanksgiving, I was not able to find access to a printer, so I have to unfortunately read my notes off my phone, so my apologies. So the rise and fall of the Shang Dynasty. So the Shang Dynasty, also known as the Yin Dynasty, was one of the ancient China's earliest dynasties. It was the second after the Xia Dynasty, which we have covered previously, spanning from approximately 1600 BCE to 1046 BCE. It marked a significant period in Chinese history, characterized by its complex social structure, advances in metallurgy, early forms of Chinese writing, and religious practices. Therefore, we'll seek to provide a detailed account of the rise and fall of the Shang Dynasty, tracing its origins and achievements, challenges, and ultimate decline. So starting with the origins of the Shang Dynasty, circa 1600 BCE to 1500 BCE. So starting with the preceding eras from the Neolithic cultures. Before the Shang, various Neolithic cultures inhabited the Yellow River Valley, notably the Longshan and Yangshao cultures. These societies laid the groundwork for settled agriculture, pottery, and basic forms of social organization. Moving to the Xia Dynasty, circa 2070 BCE to 1600 BCE. The Xia Dynasty is considered the predecessor of the Shang. Although its existence is debated, archaeological evidence suggests a semi-mythical Xia period with advanced bronze technology and early state formation. According to legend, Tang, whom we will cover, overthrew Jie, the last ruler of the Xia Dynasty. So I hope you have or endeavor to check out the previous episode on the Xia Dynasty to get further backstory. So moving to the Shang's emergence, starting with Erritu culture. The Erritu culture, located in present-day Henan province, played a pivotal role in the transition from Neolithic to the Bronze Age. Archaeological discoveries at Erritu revealed advanced metallurgy, palace-like structures, and evidence of centralized authority. So, evidence of centralized authority perhaps from the Xia Dynasty or even tracing back to earlier cultures. And archaeological sites, excavations at sites like Erritu, Zhengzhou, and Anyang have unearthed elaborate tombs, oracle bone inscriptions, and artifacts confirming the existence of a sophisticated culture. Moving to the Shang Dynasty in government, circa 1500 BCE to 1200 BCE. So social structure, so kings and aristocracy. So the Shang Dynasty was ruled by a hereditary monarchy with a powerful king at its helm. The aristocracy, composed of nobles and high-ranking officials, supported the king's rule. As for commoners, the majority of the population were farmers and craftsmen. They lived in villages and were responsible for producing food and goods for the kingdom. As for slavery, slavery was present at this time, with captives from warfare and debtors sometimes serving as slaves. As for religion and beliefs, starting with ancestor worship. So the Shang period believed in the importance of ancestral spirits. Elaborate rituals were conducted in honor of deceased family members, so sort of like deifying one's parents or grandparents. Seeking their guidance and blessings, oracle bone inscriptions were used. Moving to more detail regarding the oracle bone inscriptions. Oracle bone inscriptions found on turtle shells or animal bones were used in divination rituals. Questions were inscribed and then heat applied, causing the bones to crack. Interpretations of these cracks were believed to reveal answers from the spirit world. So I think later there's tea leaf reading. I think it's somewhat similar in that you kind of, well, it's quite different, but I suppose by looking at how sort of nature determines a formation. As for deities, the Shang practiced a form of animism, attributing spiritual significance to natural elements and celestial bodies. Important deities included Shang Di, the supreme god, and various nature spirits, so deifying both animate and inanimate objects and also the constellations as well. As for technological advancements, circa 1500 BCE to 1200 BCE, starting with bronze metallurgy. As for development, the Shang Dynasty was renowned for its mastery of bronze metallurgy. Skilled artisans produced an array of ritual vessels, weaponry, and tools using advanced casting techniques. As for artistic achievements, intricate bronze artifacts such as the famous bronze wine vessel, Jue, Gui, or Zun, and Zun, the names of these famous vessels, showcased Shang's artistic prowess. As for the early writing system, starting with oracle bone script, the Shang Dynasty developed one of the earliest known forms of Chinese writing, primarily for divination purposes. Oracle bone script consisted of inscriptions on animal bones or turtle shells representing a mix of logographic and pictographic characters, so not only used for divination, but also as forms of writing, or for forms of writing. As for language and communication, oracle bone inscriptions provided valuable insights into the Shang society, including political events, sacrifices, and divination processes. So some of these writings, dating back to 1500 BCE, were written on these bones, and they give us sort of a history of, and very much what we know of the Shang Dynasty. As for expansion and diplomacy, circa 1200 BCE to 1100 BCE, starting with territorial expansion and military campaigns. The Shang Dynasty engaged in territorial expansion, often through military conquest. Records indicate conflicts with neighboring tribes and states leading to territorial gains, so something that makes it more fitting for an empire in that it was conquering other areas. Influence over vassal states. The Shang established a system of vassal states extending their influence over a broader region. These states paid tribute to the Shang court in exchange for protection. So a vassal system, so subordinate states, some that they'd conquered or some that through necessity had joined under the Shang umbrella, would pay tribute to the capital. As for diplomatic relations, starting with martial alliances, the Shang often solidified political relationships through strategic marriage. So rather than just through conquest, they also married into other powerful families, or powerful families would marry into them to make them themselves more powerful, creating alliances with neighboring states and tribes. As for the tribute system, the Shang maintained a tribute system where neighboring regions acknowledged the Shang authority by sending regular offerings of goods and services. So very much strengthening the capital, more of an inflow of resources, however. Moving, however, to the decline and fall of the Shang Dynasty, circa 1100 BCE to 1046 BCE, starting with internal challenges. rebellion and civil unrest. Internal strife and rebellions weakened the centralized powers of the Shang rulers. Discontentment among the aristocracy and commoners contributed to this unrest. Famine and natural disasters also occurred. Instances of drought, floods, and famines further destabilized the dynasty, putting immense pressure on the ruling elite to maintain control. So, as we mentioned previously, is it a strong economy that creates a strong empire, or does a strong empire create a strong economy? They probably both feed into each other. And in this case, they sort of started to lose on both, well, particularly from the internal through these natural disasters. And therefore, they needed to strengthen if they did not strengthen their centralized rule, they would have lost control, which they slowly did. As for external threats, which naturally come, starting with the Zhou invasion, the final blow of the Shang Dynasty came in the form of the Zhou invasion. Led by King Wu, the Zhou forces defeated the Shang at the Battle of Muye in 1046 BCE. This led to a cultural shift. The Zhou dynasty, which succeeded the Shang, ushered in a period of significant cultural and political change, marked by the beginning of the Eastern Zhou period, which we will cover in a following episode. Thus, the Shang dynasty's rise and fall marked a crucial chapter in the ancient Chinese history. Its achievements in metallurgy, writing, and social organization laid the groundwork for subsequent dynasties. However, internal strife, external pressures, and changing geopolitical landscape ultimately led to its downfall. Despite its relatively short-lived existence, the legacy of the Shang dynasty endured, influencing the development of Chinese civilization for centuries to come. So very, very fascinating, very early, and perhaps maybe even the earliest Chinese dynasty, because the Xia is contested, but nonetheless, I think there's sufficient evidence for the Xia dynasty. But it's the earliest firmly supported Chinese dynasty. So, to discuss a specific ruler from the Shang dynasty, Tang of Shang, the pinnacle of Shang dynasty rule. Tang of Shang, also known as Tang the Great, or Tang the Perfect, is widely regarded as the most significant ruler of the Shang dynasty, an ancient Chinese civilization that thrived around 1600 BCE to 1046 BCE. His reign, which spanned from approximately 1675 to 1046 BCE, marked a pivotal period in Chinese history. So he was, in fact, the first ruler of the Shang dynasty. That's why I question whether he was really at the pinnacle, because the pinnacle was unlikely at the very start, but he's considered perfect nonetheless. Tang's leadership was characterized by his military prowess, visionary governance, and substantial contributions to the dynasty's cultural and technological advancements. Starting with early life and ascension, circa 1090 BCE to 1675 BCE. Starting with his ancestry and lineage, Tang of Shang was born into the prestigious Yin family, a noble lineage that held considerable influence in the Shang state. His lineage could be traced back several generations, and as we noted, they deified their ancestors as well, establishing his legitimacy to the throne. As for parentage and childhood, little is known about Tang's early years, but it is believed he was raised in a privileged environment, hence coming from the Shang royal family, likely receiving an education befitting a future ruler, if not the best education one could get from that region. As for succession and coronation, emergence as heir apparent, Tang's ascent to power came amidst a period of uncertainty and political intrigue within the Shang court. His capabilities and leadership potential earned his recognition as the rightful heir to the throne. As for coronation and early reforms, upon his ascension, Tang initiated a series of reforms aimed at strengthening the Shang state. These early measures laid the foundation for his transformative rule. As for military campaigns and expansion, circa 1675 BCE to 1660 BCE. Starting with consolidation of power and suppression of internal dissent. Tang faced early challenges from factions within the Shang court. Through a combination of political maneuvering and military assertiveness, he effectively quelled internal dissent. So first, by quelling the internal dissent, he was ready to take on the external. As for unification of the Shang realm, Tang undertook a series of campaigns to assert Shang dominance over neighboring states and tribal regions. These conquests were crucial in solidifying his authority and expanding the Shang's territorial reach. As for the defeat of the Xia dynasty, starting with the Xia-Shang conflict, the Xia dynasty, a semi-legendary predecessor state, presented a formidable challenge to the nascent Shang dynasty. Tang of Shang orchestrated a series of strategic military campaigns aimed at weakening Xia's grip on power. So I hope you have or will check out the Xia episode, but Yi the Great was famous for creating the aquaculture of the region, so he set a lot of the infrastructure that Shang would later benefit from, but perhaps not as militarily astute as one such as Tang or the Shang dynasty, the Shang people as well. As for victory and legacy, Tang's resounding victory over the Xia dynasty, culminating in the capture of its capital, marked a watershed moment in Chinese history. No pun intended, because they claimed a lot of watersheds. This triumph solidified Tang's reputation as a military strategist of unparalleled skills. As for his governance and administrative reforms, 1660 BCE to 1650 BCE, sort of a centralized authority and administrative reorganization. Tang implemented sweeping administrative reforms aimed at centralizing power within the Shang state. He established a bureaucratic system that streamlined governance and enhanced the efficiency of state affairs. So it's fascinating to see even today, the Chinese state is still very centralized, and it dates back to these earliest dynasties. As for strengthening of the monarchy, Tang's rule was characterized by the strengthening of the monarchy's authority, which allowed for more effective decision-making and governance. As for economic and agricultural initiatives, starting with irrigation and agriculture. Tang of Shang recognized the critical importance of agriculture to the Shang economy. He undertook ambitious irrigation projects that facilitated increased agricultural productivity and prosperity. So something that was similar from that of Yi, very much focused on the aquaculture. However, Yi was for actually preventing the floods that came and devastated the Xia dynasty prior, whereas Tang might be more recognized for sort of the irrigation for agriculture. As for economic prosperity, Tang's initiatives in agriculture and infrastructure development contributed to economic growth, elevated the living standards of his subjects, and solidifying the Shang dynasty's stability. As for cultural and technological advancements, 1650 to 1646 BCE, starting with bronze metallurgy and artistic achievements. Patronage of the arts. Tang's reign witnessed a flourishing of artistic expression, particularly in the realm of bronze metallurgy. He supported skilled artisans, resulting in the creation of exquisite ritual vessels and ornate artifacts. As for cultural legacy, Tang's patronage of the arts left an enduring cultural legacy, influencing subsequent dynasties and contributing to the rich tapestry of ancient Chinese artistic traditions. So, perhaps some of this it's hard to specifically attribute to Tang, so perhaps some came from its predecessors. Nonetheless, it seems to be a commonality amongst great leaders that they are patrons of the arts, because not only does that garner support from themselves, but also respect from neighboring states or neighboring peoples, or recently conquered or recently subordinated peoples. As for the development of early writing, starting with oracle bone script, Tang's court played a pivotal role in the further development of early Chinese writing system, as they had to have some sort of writing to share information, known as oracle bone script. The script was utilized for divination and record-keeping purposes. As for literary legacy, Tang's contribution to early Chinese writing facilitated communications, documentation, and the preservation of historical records for posterity. As for legacy and enduring influence, circa 1646 BCE to the present. Starting with historical impact, the triumph of Tang. Tang's reign represented a zenith in Shang dynasty rule, or if not the first zenith. characterized by territorial expansion, administrative reforms, and cultural flourishing, moving to influence on successive dynasties. Tang of Shang's legacy reverberated through subsequent dynasties as well, influencing governance structures, military strategies, and cultural expressions. So if Shang was in fact the first real dynasty, at least the heritage of centralized authority and centralized government has passed on throughout the ages and even to modern times. Remembering the Tang of Shang, sort of with cultural reverence, Tang of Shang is remembered and revered in Chinese history and culture as a visionary leader whose reign marked a high point in ancient Chinese civilization. Tang's enduring influence, the indelible contribution of Tang of Shang, continue to shape Chinese cultural and historical narrative, serving as a testament to his enduring significance. Thus, Tang of Shang, known as Tang the Great or Tang the Perfect, stands as an iconic figure in ancient Chinese history. His visionary leadership, military acumen, and transformative governance elevated the Shang dynasty to unprecedented heights. Through his reign, Tang left an indelible mark on Chinese civilization, shaping not only the course of the Shang dynasty, but also influencing the subsequent dynasties and leaving a profound cultural legacy that endures to this day. I will close the window quickly. I prefer having the window open because it's cooler, but some people have noted the sound of the traffic outside. I am on the 9th floor of an apartment, but some people prefer not to have the noise, so my apologies, but it was hot in here for a bit. So, without further ado, we will discuss the content of the slide before moving to the next empire and leader. So the title is Tang and the Shang Dynasty Empire, the earliest firmly supported Chinese dynasty. As for the facts we have here, significant leader Tang the Perfect, empire Shang Dynasty, period circa 1600 to 1045 BCE, or 1046 to be more precise, BCE. Modern location, China, approximately in the Yellow River region. Million square kilometers, 1.25 million square miles, 0.48% of the world, 0.93%. So this is the largest empire we have covered yet. Capital cities, Bo, Ao, Yan, Xiang, Yin, and Zhaoji. So perhaps maybe only one of these was the capital, or maybe all these were capitals over different times, but there's evidence that all of these might have been capitals, perhaps likely at different times. Government, monarchy, common language, Old Chinese or Ancient Chinese. So this is probably the earliest form of Chinese language, and it's interesting because now there are many different dialects of Chinese. Most prominently, the two major branches are Cantonese and Mandarin, but they come from one single source language. So it's interesting that they separated. Religion, patriarchal religion, which is supposed to like deifying one's ancestors, and divination, which is deifying certain aspects of material culture. And also divination in that they look for example, in the oracle bones, looking for answers to their questions. Population 5 to 13 million, so what's also the largest in terms of population we have covered so far. Currency, shell money or tong bei, which are similar to shell money but made of metal. In terms of images, in the top left we have an image supposedly of Tang, of Shang. To the right of that we have the name Shang written in multiple different forms of script. Below that we have a bowl, metal I believe, or it could be clay based on those lines, but I thought it was metal because they're known for metallurgy. To the left we have one of these oracle bones. I think this is not on a turtle shell but on some form of cattle bone, but nonetheless they would put their questions on there in writing. As we can see, there is a bit of writing, and then they would heat it up and see the way it cracked. Below that we have an axe, evidence of the metallurgy. Up and to the right of that we have a map showing where the Heir the Two was and sort of some key locations within the Yellow River Valley area. And below that we have masks, so interesting to see that they wore masks, and interesting to see what they looked like, because I don't think those are masks for warfare. I think they would be more masks for play or masks for celebration. Below that we have one of the tombs of one of the kings and showing all the pots and metallurgy within it. To the right there is a big deposit also. This is a tomb I believe as well, and it's filled with oracle bones as well. These I believe of metal. To the right is a sacrificial iron crib-like structure, and I believe it was actually the heaviest metal structure they have in Chinese in artifacts, which is interesting that it comes as one of the earliest. Up and to the left, we have one of those famous metal vases discussed. To the left of that, we have the main line of descent, starting with Di Yi, Da Yi, which is Tang, all the way down to Di Xin. And up and to the right, we have, in the top right, we have the approximate area of which the Shang Dynasty ruled in the Yellow River region. So that is Tang and the Shang Dynasty Empire, and we will discuss it a bit more in a comparison at the end in the style of Plutarch's Parallel Lives. So the Middle Assyrian Empire. The Middle Assyrian Empire, so we have previously covered the Old Assyrian Empire. We've also covered the Mitanni. So I separated the Old Assyrian Empire and the Mitanni because they're separate, but one could consider the Mitanni as maybe part of Assyrian history as well. But the Middle Assyrian Empire is also a distinct period. So the Middle Assyrian Empire, spanning from approximately 1365 BCE to 1020 BCE, though there were largely unsuccessful attempts to restore it by Ashur-Rabi II in 1020 to 1013 BC, as we'll see, and there was also a Dark Ages period after the Old Assyrian Empire that preceded it. But nonetheless, it marked a significant period in the ancient Near Eastern history. It emerged as a prominent force in the region, exhibiting remarkable military prowess, administrative efficiency, and cultural achievements. Therefore, we will seek to provide a detailed account of the rise and fall of the Middle Assyrian Empire, tracing its origins, key rulers, territorial expansions, achievements, challenges, and eventual decline. Starting with the emergence of Assyria, circa 1365 BCE to 1300, just the emergence of Assyria, circa 1365 BCE. Starting with the early Assyrian kingdoms, it's the Assyrian heartland. The Assyrian homeland, located in the northern region of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, was initially divided into several independent city-states, each ruled by local kings. So that would not be sufficient to call it an empire. Our definition of empire is that it must include at least multiple peoples or multiple city-states. Ashur-uballit I and the founding of the Middle Assyrian Empire, circa 1365 BCE to circa 1318 BCE. The unified Assyria. So Ashur-uballit I, a powerful Assyrian ruler, he successfully united the disparate city-states of Assyria once again, establishing the foundation for a centralized Assyrian state. As for his expansionist policies, Ashur-uballit I initiated a series of military campaigns aimed at consolidating and expanding Assyrian territories, ultimately leading to the establishment of the Middle Assyrian Empire. Expansion and consolidation, circa 1318 BCE to 1200 BCE, with Shalmaneser I, circa 1274 BCE to 1245 BCE, with his military campaigns. Shalmaneser I, one of the most significant rulers of the Middle Assyrian Empire, conducted extensive military campaigns, expanding Assyrian territories to the north, west, and south, which are all, these aren't easy areas to conquer. All these areas have militaries. In the north, we have Babylonia. In the south, we have the Sumerian city-states like Larsa and Isin, as previously covered. And in the east, there's also the Indus Valley civilization, so it's not easy places to conquer. Moving to Tukulti-Ninurta I, circa 1243 BCE to 1207 BCE, with the Kassite conquest. Tukulti-Ninurta I achieved a monumental victory by capturing the Kassite capital of Babylon, temporarily incorporating Babylonia into the Assyrian Empire. As for cultural exchange, the conquest of Babylon facilitated cultural exchange between Assyria and Babylonia, leading to the assimilation of Babylonian culture and religious practices into the Assyrian Empire. So multicultural in that after they started to conquer parts of Babylon or Babylonia, they started to incorporate those cultures rather than cleanse it or eradicate it, which I think is probably a more, perhaps at least a more moral strategy. As for the zenith of power and achievement, circa 1200 BCE to 1100 BCE, so with economic prosperity, these conquests have brought vast wealth and resources to Assyria, contributing to economic prosperity and cultural flourishing. As for Ashur-dan I, circa 1179 BCE to 1133 BCE, with the Babylonian influence. Ashur-dan I, like his predecessors, maintained control over Babylonia, solidifying Assyria's dominance over the region. As for his architectural projects, Ashur-dan I initiated various architectural projects, including the construction and restoration of temples and fortifications, showcasing Assyria's cultural achievements. But moving to challenges and declines after much expansion, particularly into the contested regions of Babylonia, which had strong armies, circa 1100 BCE to 1020 BCE, starting with internal dissent and revolt. So with any decline so far that we've seen, despite external challenges or natural challenges, there's often some sort of internal pressures as well, which might be the result of external or natural causes. With succession crises. The latter years of the Middle Assyrian Empire was marked by internal strife, with succession disputes weakening the central authority. Something very clear in Gibbon's Roman Empire is that once there was start murdering the empires, which isn't necessarily true for Assyria, but nonetheless having a weakened central authority, a weakened lineage, is much harder to maintain. As for revolts and uprisings, regional vassal states, sensing Assyria's vulnerability, began to rebel against Assyrian rule. So once again, both the internal and external sort of feeding into each other, further destabilizing the empire. Moving to Tiglath-Pilesar I and expansion in Anatolia, whom we will cover in a specific biography. So the Anatolian campaign, Tiglath-Pilesar I extended Assyrian influence into Anatolia, conducting successful military campaigns against the Hittites and other regional powers, despite the surrounding declines. So sort of at the tail end, as the Assyrian Empire starts to fall, we have Tiglath sort of restoring some of its greatness. So he lived circa 1115 BCE to 1077 BCE. But moving to external threats, the Aramean invasions. So the Arameans, a Semitic people, launched a series of invasions and incursions into Assyrian territories, putting significant pressures on the empire's borders. Thus, moving to loss of territory, Assyria experienced territorial loss, with regions in Anatolia and the west falling under the control of rival powers. So, despite Tiglath-Pilesar's successes in Anatolia, it still wasn't sufficient, as sort of things started to cave in on an already destabilized state. Moving to Ashur-rabi II and the end of the Middle Assyrian Empire, circa 1020 BCE to 1013 BCE. So Ashur-rabi II, circa 1015 BCE to 972 BCE. So attempted reforms. Ashur-rabi II attempted to institute reforms to address internal discontent and external threats, but these measures were largely unsuccessful in halting the empire's decline. Moving to fragmentation and fall. The empire continued to fragment, with vassal states asserting greater independence. Ashur-bel-kala's son and successor Ariba-adad II, who reigned from 1056 to 1054 BCE, and generations of kings thereafter were unable to maintain the achievements of their predecessors. In 1013 BCE, the Assyrian Empire collapsed, marking the end of the Middle Assyrian period. But it sort of still continued on. The Neo-Assyrian Empire, the largest empire in history up to that point, to come in 911 BCE. So a lot of, as we have here, the period of the Middle Assyrian Empire is considered to go up to 912, but really it wasn't really an empire after 1013 BCE. But nonetheless, there will be a Neo-Assyrian Empire. So as we have the Old, Middle, and New Kingdom of Egypt, for Assyria, it's the Old, Middle, and Neo-Assyrian empires. So slightly different naming convention for the newest one. So thus the Middle Assyrian Empire, characterized by territorial expansion, cultural achievements, and administrative innovations, left an indelible mark on ancient Near Eastern history. While it ultimately succumbed to internal dissent and external pressures, its legacy endured, influencing subsequent empires and shaping the course of ancient Mesopotamian civilization. The Middle Assyrian Empire stands as a testament to the heights of the empires that empires can achieve, as well as the challenges they face in maintaining their dominance over time. So there's much to learn from all three components of the Assyrian Empire, and I hope you also check out the old Assyrian Empire and the new Assyrian Empire, as I will create the latter and have created the former. So in terms of the content of the slide, the title is Tiglath-Pilesar I and the Middle Assyrian Empire, which was founded at Assur through the independence from the Mitanni Kingdom. So we have also covered the Mitanni Kingdom Empire, which I hope you endeavor to check out, but that was, sometimes it's grouped into part of Assyrian history, but I think it is a distinct empire. But once again, I think a key factor about the Assyrian empires is they come from Assur, whereas the Mitanni slightly different. So empire, Middle Assyria, period circa 1363 to 912 BCE at the start of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, but one could say I would say the Middle Assyrian Empire sort of formally ended around 1013 BCE. Modern location, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. Million square kilometers, 0.40. Million square miles, 0.15%. Of the world, 0.30. So in a comparison, to compare with the Shang Dynasty was much larger, but the region in which the Assyrian Empire had claimed this territory was a territory much more riddled with violence. There have been empires risen and fallen. They had to defeat the Mitannis just to get this place back. Capital, Assur, and for a period, Kar-Tukulti Ninurta in between 1233 to 1207 BCE, but largely Assur. And I think one of the defining features of the Assyrian empires is they come from Assur. Government, monarchy. Common languages, Akkadian, which is the main language of the Assyrians, Hurrian, Amorite, and Aramaic. Religion, ancient Mesopotamian. Population, 1 to 2 million. As for images, in the top left, we have an image of Tiglath-Pilesar I carved into some stone. Unfortunately, it's hard to see. Some of the images are better than others. This is the best image I could find of Tiglath-Pilesar. To the right, we have on an octagon, it's writing, but unlike previous empires, or some where they had poems on this is specifically focused on military conquest. So some characterizing features of the Assyrians was that they were really militarily focused. To the right, we have a royal letter from one of the kings to an Egyptian pharaoh, so showing the communication with Egypt, whereas they weren't necessarily fighting each other, but they were able to communicate in a respectful form, but also had the sophistication of writing, and at least they were able to translate each other's writings too. To the right of that, we have the Assyrian-Babylonian border negotiations. So ultimately, they had many battles with the Babylonians, who were slightly to the north, in Babylonia, but at times they also negotiated. Below that, we have Shalmaneser the first pouring dust from the destroyed Arinu. So one of these sadder images, but very much with a military focus. So they had their city destroyed. He's sort of lamenting at the dust that has become of one of his cities. To the right of that, we have some Assyrian soldiers leaving to fight the Aramaeans, who ultimately posed them many challenges. But a very fascinating image to sort of just get a picture. I don't know to what extent all these images are factually correct, but they're significant enough to have been appreciated by many scholars and such. So fascinating to look at, I find, to kind of get a picture of what they looked like, but also mostly that they really did focus largely on warfare. Below that, we have many of these Mesopotamian civilizations create their art on these cylinders, and in this we have a winged horse, so showing that they admired horses, but also admired flying, but also I don't think they believed in winged horses, but maybe deified it. To the right of that, we have a cuneiform receipt. Cuneiform is for sheep, and goat for an exorcism. So they do quite a bit of religious practices or believed in exorcism, and they actually paid a sheep and a goat for sacrifice for an exorcism. So showing some sort of commerce, but also showing an element of religion. Above that, we have a ceremonial sickle of King Adad Nirari I. So that is a very fascinating object. I bet it costs millions of dollars, but that would be something I would really like to own someday. But I doubt that would ever happen. But that would be a fascinating object to own. Above that is the map of the region in which the Middle Assyrian Empire came to rule over. If we can see, there's Assur in the sort of middle southeast is Assur, which was predominantly their capital city, and above that, their capital for a small period of time is Kar Tukulti Nirta, which was the capital for a small period of time. But notice they're both on the Tigre River. So that is the Tiglath-Pilesar I and the Middle Assyrian Empire, and now we will go into a comparison between Tang of the Shang Dynasty Empire and Tiglath-Pilesar I of the Middle Assyrian Empire. So Tiglath-Pilesar I, one of the most consequential rulers of the Middle Assyrian Empire, ascended to the throne in a time of regional turmoil. His reign, pardon me, that was the biography. So Tang of the Shang Dynasty and the Tiglath-Pilesar of the Middle Assyrian Empire. So starting with Tang of the Shang Dynasty and Tiglath-Pilesar following of the Middle Assyrian Empire were two remarkable rulers who lived in different regions and eras but shared several noteworthy qualities. Both rulers played pivotal roles in the shaping of the course of history in ancient China and the Near East, respectively. Therefore, we will seek to delve into their backgrounds, achievements, military exploits, administrative reforms, cultural contributions, and legacies to highlight the similarities and differences between Tang and Tiglath-Pilesar I. Starting with background and rise to power. So Tang of the Shang Dynasty, circa 1690 BCE to 1646 BCE, starting with his ancestry and lineage. Tang was born into the prestigious Yin family, a noble lineage with significant influence within the Shang state, but it was not the ruling state because supposedly there was the Xia dynasty before. His lineage could be traced back several generations, establishing his legitimacy to the throne. As for his early life and ascension, Tang emerged as the rightful heir to the Shang throne, overcoming internal challenges in political intrigue, so it wasn't necessarily too straightforward of a climb. His ascension marked a critical turning point in the Shang dynasty history, leading to a period of stability and expansion. As for Tiglath-Pilesar I of the Middle Assyrian Empire, circa 1115 BCE to 1077 BCE, so almost 500 years after. As for his ancestry and lineage, Tiglath-Pilesar I hailed from the distinguished Assyrian family of Ashur-resh-ishi family, known for its significant influence in the region, but they did not rule the region. For example, the Mitanni were very powerful, and the old Assyrian Empire was in its dark ages. His lineage boasted a lineage of leaders and warriors, providing a strong foundations for his rule. As for his early life and ascension, Tiglath-Pilesar I rose to power amidst regional turmoil, facing both internal and external challenges to his rule. His ascension heralded in an era of territorial expansion, administrative reforms, and cultural flourishing within the Middle Assyrian Empire. So, very much, pardon me, Tiglath-Pilesar was not the first leader of the Middle Kingdom of Assyria. He was one of the latter ones, but the Middle Kingdom of Assyria was on its decline, and he sort of was sort of a shining later star that sort of temporarily restored it by going into Anatolia. But nonetheless, he was definitively of the royal family, but there were intrigues and much internal strife to contest it, but the Mitanni were far out of the picture at this point, so my apologies for mentioning the Mitanni at that point. As for military conquest and expansion, starting with Tang of the Shang Dynasty, campaigns and conquests. Tang's military campaigns were instrumental in expanding Shang territories, solidifying the Shang Dynasty's dominance in the Yellow River Valley. He achieved a significant victory in the defeat of the semi-legendary Xia Dynasty, marking a crucial milestone in Shang history, and in fact likely the first milestone in the empire's history. As for his military strategies, Tang's military strategies were characterized by a combination of tactical brilliance, strategic alliances, and effective use of resources. As for Tiglath-Pilesar I of the Middle Assyrian Empire, his campaigns and conquests, Tiglath-Pilesar I conducted extensive military campaigns extending Assyrian territories to the north, west, and south. Notable victories include the Battle of Karchemish against the Hittites and the capture of the Kassite capital, Dur-Kurizalgu. As for his military strategies, Tiglath-Pilesar I's military successes was attributed to his strategic acumen, innovative tactics, and ability to inspire and lead his troops effectively. So I think perhaps his achievements against the Hittites and Kassites, which those might even have been attributed to other leaders as well. I think with the author that wrote that might have been mistaken, but what he was most known for was his achievements in Anatolia. As for administrative reforms and governance, starting with Tang of the Shang Dynasty, his centralized bureaucracy, Tang implemented administrative reforms aimed at centralizing power, streamlining governance, and enhancing the efficiency of the Shang state. As for his economic policies, Tang introduced policies to support agriculture, including irrigation projects and measures to improve agricultural productivity, some of which still benefit modern China today. But also he did build off some of the benefits of the previous Xia dynasty with Yi the Great, who created those original irrigation processes that prevented flooding. So although he was great in terms of producing irrigation for agriculture, he's still standing on the shoulders of at least one giant, perhaps semi-mythical giant. And as for Tiglath-Pilesar, his centralized bureaucracy, Tiglath-Pilesar I reorganized the government, creating a more efficient and centralized bureaucracy system that facilitated governance over the expanding empire. So this time there was much, as we noted, this is the latter periods of the Assyrian Empire. There was much internal strife, threats from neighboring states, so there was a period of re-centralization, but eventually it wasn't sufficient to hold it. But as mentioned, criticism sometimes given to many great leaders is that it's one thing to do great things when the empire is rising, or to not do great things when the empire is falling, but to do something great when the empire is falling, I think is really a fascinating feature. But could he have founded an empire like Tang of the Shang Dynasty? It's hard to say. It's impossible to speculate, rather. As for Tiglath-Pilesar economic policies, Tiglath-Pilesar I implemented economic policies that supported agriculture, contributing to economic growth and prosperity within the Middle Assyrian Empire. So also very much focused on economic prosperity, but perhaps more focused on trade. And trade might be a way of defusing some of the threats from the neighboring states, whereas under Shang Dynasty Empire, he sort of started just amalgamating all the states and really was focused on conquering and bringing them under his control more than Tiglath-Pilesar. When the Middle Assyrian Empire was already in decline, he did attempt and conquer many states, particularly in Anatolia, but it was also more important for him to focus on trade. As for cultural contribution and legacy, so Tang, the Shang Dynasty's patronage of the arts, Tang actively promoted cultural and artistic endeavors, fostering a vibrant community within the Shang Dynasty. Much of the earliest language and earliest currencies come from this period, but maybe much from his predecessors as well. As for his architectural achievements, Tang initiated various architectural projects, including the restoration of temples and fortifications, leaving a lasting legacy in the Shang architecture, which sort of was carried on through his predecessors. As for his legacy, Tang's reign marked a high point in the Shang Dynasty, if not the first success, leaving an enduring legacy on the annals of ancient Chinese civilization. Some of his centralization policies still exist today, some of the irrigation networks still exist today, and if he's the first solidly or confirmed leader of the first confirmed dynasty of ancient China, so perhaps maybe the very first. As for Tiglath-Pilesar of the Middle Kingdom Assyrian Empire, his cultural flourishing, Tiglath-Pilesar I left behind a rich corpus of royal inscriptions that provide valuable insights into the achievements, military conquests, and administrative policies. So that octagon we saw in the previous slide was it had his name even on it, but it documented many of the military conquests. So much of the records we have today are thanks to Tiglath-Pilesar I, or at least those writing about him or for him. As for his architectural projects, Tiglath-Pilesar I undertook various architectural projects showcasing the grandeur and the power of the Assyrian Empire and of reinforcing the cultural and political dominance. So, as mentioned previously, having great architectural achievements not only inspires the population, but also creates fear or inspires neighboring states as well. So it is very important. For example, the pyramids of Giza inspired Egyptian legacies for two other periods, the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom, even though they were created in the Old period. As for legacy, Tiglath-Pilesar I's visionary leadership and enduring influence continue to be acknowledged in the study of ancient Near Eastern history and the development of early empires. This is still very much research, but I think he's also very important in researching in that how can one change the momentum of a declining empire? Whereas Tang, the question is how does one create an empire? So maybe two very different skill sets. Not necessarily saying that Tang could not have changed the momentum of a declining empire, or that Tiglath-Pilesar I could not have founded an empire, but as we know it, we only can take the data that we have, and Tang is the founder of an empire, and Tiglath-Pilesar I is one who changed the momentum temporarily of a declining empire, but maybe he could have done a better job in maintaining that upward momentum that he temporarily produced. Thus, Tang of the Shang Dynasty and Tiglath-Pilesar I of the Middle Assyrian Empire were visionary leaders who emerged in different times and regions, yet their legacies share striking parallels. Both rulers were instrumental in expanding their empires, implementing administrative reforms, and promoting cultural flourishing. Their military successes, administrative acumen, and cultural contributions left indelible marks on the history of ancient China and the Near East. Tang and Tiglath-Pilesar I stand as testaments to the enduring impact of visionary leadership on the course of ancient civilizations. So two very, very fascinating leaders and two very, very fascinating empires, at least in my opinion. Thank you very much for your support. It's Thanksgiving, so I'm thankful to you, of course, and I hope you continue to support. Thank you so much.